My name is Barry Utesh, and I'm the president of Total Computer Solutions. I want to thank you for taking a few minutes to talk with us about what we see as an urgent problem necessitating some security enhancements for all TCS clients. Let's face it, security is headline news. There was a time when most of the security conversations were taking place behind closed doors in the IT department. But today, those conversations are in the main boardroom, and there are CEOs that are losing their jobs due to breaches that they may or may not even have known about. You may have seen articles on the internet describing the cybercrime that took place in a Hollywood hospital just back in mid-February. This Hollywood hospital was infected with CryptoLocker, and they were holding the hospital hostage for a reported 3 million in Bitcoin. Uh, Ultimately, the cyber criminals settled for I think $18,000. However, there was a several day period where the hospital was in a world of hurt because they could not access patient information because the cyber criminals had encrypted it all. And ultimately, what ended up being the best solution for the hospital was to pay the cyber criminals off and get their data back. Security is about risk mitigation, and really it's a layered approach. There is no one magic bulletproof piece of glass. To make a piece of glass bulletproof, you have to take multiple layers. They have to be assembled properly by a skilled technician. And when you do that, the combination of those pieces ultimately make bulletproof glass. With technology, we would consider the following six things to be your bulletproof glass: user training, patching of the desktops, firewall appliance, an up to date firewall appliance, malware software, secure passwords, and then content filtering. Symantec did a study a few years ago, and they found that 41% of cyber attacks were targeted at small and medium sized businesses. Verizon similarly found that a organization with 11 to 100 employees was 15 times more likely to be targeted by cyber criminals than a very large or a very small organization. A campaign of 10 emails will yield a greater than 90% chance that at least one person will click. And part of the reason for that is because the cyber criminals have become much better. If you look at this particular example, FedEx unable to deliver a package, if you look up at the top, you can see that it wasn't FedEx at all, it was FedEx. But it requires a fairly savvy user to know to look for that. Here's another good one. Who can resist a free personal pan pizza? And here's one of my favorites, Amazon Black Friday special, $50 off a $100 order. You remember your mom telling you when you were a kid, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Again, Symantec, the makers of Norton Antivirus, are indicating that only 3% of malware goes after a technical flaw, that 97% of the time you're trying to trick a user. One of my favorite cartoons is this one. On the left side, we have firewalls, encryption, antivirus software. And in the other corner, we have Dave. Dave's not malicious, Dave's just human error. So other ways that the cyber criminals try to entice us is, downloading a free game. It's always an urgent message, right? That's always the case. Or it may be an update from a Microsoft or an Adobe. This is a simple drawing, but I hope it will help to explain how this transpires. So in the upper corner here, we have your main office, and here are the IP addresses, or the phone numbers, if you will, of the various computers in your office. Down here are your remote users. Of course, you have a firewall, and then it's protecting you from the internet. Over here, you've got legitimate web servers, MSNBC, Amazon, etc. And then down here, we've got our cyber criminals web servers. Think of domain name services like the phone book of the internet. So if I type in from this computer Volkswagen, right, the domain name service returns this IP address to me, and then this computer connects to this website. Well, what the cyber criminals do is they send an email, and in that email, they have what appears to be a legitimate advertisement. The problem is that when you click on Find a Dealer, instead of returning this IP address, they return this IP address. And unless your user is savvy enough to recognize a malicious content, it'd be very unlikely that they would be able to prevent receiving that infection. Obviously, the cyber criminals are attacking the weakest link in the supply chain. They go after the little guy. Not many of us have heard of Fazio Mechanical Services, but Fazio was a refrigeration contractor that supplied work and services to Target. And that was how the cyber criminals were able to successfully get into Target, is they were able to successfully get into Fazio Mechanical Services and then pivot off of Fazio to breach Target. So the impact of a breach is high. The statistics are that 60% of small firms will go out of business within 6 months. What does this tool look like? I mentioned DNS. Well, DNS takes millions of data points every second and runs it through an algorithm, artificial intelligence, if you will, scoring on all these things. And out of that, they produce probable malicious sites. So thinking back to our previous slide where the CryptoLocker site would be a probable malicious site, and then what they're doing is blocking your ability to get to that site. Training, I mentioned that as one of the most important things. Training your end users is the number one thing you can do to reduce the risk of cyber infection. We would suggest that test phishing your users on a regular basis, and you can decide how regular is regular. And then also having them watch some short videos on how to determine whether an email or a website is in fact malicious. So the way that this works graphically, over here we have the internet, and over here we have the customer. And so we have our virus, and obviously on this, as this is inbound into our network, we want to try our best to prevent that from infecting our computer. In addition, over here, we've got inappropriate content and we have phishing. And also we want to attempt to prevent that from getting into our network. However, you remember Dave. Well, the reality is that if a user clicks, you're going to get a virus. And so if the inevitable does happen, then the next question is, okay, can we prevent that virus from going back out to the mothership and receiving its further instructions, thereby thwarting its ability to impact our network? Traditional model is to prevent, right? Anti-malware, firewall, patching PCs, training users, etc. In addition, we believe that you need to train and contain, adding two more layers to your bulletproof glass. And again, the beauty of this is even in the event of an infection, if we can contain that malware from getting back out, we can effectively eliminate the breach. And yes, we've got an infected computer, but we haven't lost valuable data. So to stop cyber criminals is not complicated, but we must be proactive. Training employees is huge. Keeping your workstations patched and updated on a weekly basis is significant as well. Keeping your malware software up to date. Secure passwords, preventing USB drives from auto-recognizing. For mobile devices, passcodes, auto-lock features. Having an up-to-date firewall that includes deep packet inspection so that it can look at encrypted traffic on the internet. A continuous look at filtering your internet traffic, preventing the malware from being able to phone home. And then finally, having a plan of action for when an intrusion is detected. So this new product that we're offering, it has internet content filtering, and those preferences can be set to what you believe is important. It also can block malware outbound traffic, keep it from phoning home. We have the ability to report on users' browsing habits if that's important to you. In addition, training your users by sending the test phishing emails and then doing online video training, uh, which is brief, and there's a few simple questions at the end to make sure that the users are paying attention. So thank you for taking a few minutes to listen to this presentation. And now one of my team members will be happy to answer any questions that you may have.